Farrik!
Welcome back to Dank Farrik, a Star Wars podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Tyler Mendelson, along with my co-host.
Carlos Gomez.
And today we got a slew of things we'd love to discuss with you. We have an episode coming out on May 4th that we're going to be discussing the Bad Batch when it gets released, and a couple other things about Star Wars Day. But, for this episode, we just wanted to talk about some upcoming news.
Yep. So starting up, recently Ewan Mcgregor did an interview where he spoke a bunch about, his career in general. But the things we care about are not Moulin Rouge. Uh, is Obi-Wan. So he's talked about recently about how he's done a lot of lightsaber training,
Yeah.
which is intriguing considering that you would think the Obi-Wan show would be very passive, as it were, because he's
Right.
just an old hermit in the desert doing nothing for 20 years. But if there's intense lightsaber sequences, and we know Vader's in the show, what does that mean? Does he go out? He also talks about stagecraft, which is the technology they use in Mandalorian, the LED lights, and he talks about how it feels more real because when you're in the desert, you actually feel like you're in the desert. And the part that I'm most intrigued by is that he actually said, when you're in a spaceship, you actually see space, which makes me to
So
think
he's
about.
not going to be on planet the whole time, most likely.
I don't know. See, that's the thing,
Most.
and that's one of those things that we've always wondered about Obi-Wan, the Obi-Wan show.
Did he stay on Tatooine the
Did
entire
he
time?
stay on Tatooine?
Well, I guess we're gonna find out.
Yeah, but
Not for a while though.
yeah, but it does make you wonder. He also kind of slightly avoids the question of whether or not he's had a screen test with young Luke Skywalker,
Mm-hmm.
and he said is a very strong possibility, which is not very well hidden, I guess. But just ramping up everything about the Obi-Wan show, it gets more exciting as we get more stuff about it, and
It's got to be crazy for him. I mean, he's already such a wonderful actor. He was probably the brightest part about the prequels, as far as the acting and like his performance, and compared to the other actors, like his lines never seemed cheesy or botched, or he always made it work and was definitely the bright spot of the prequels. But for him to compare, the green screen of the prequels to this stage that the Mandalorian set up that is also going to be used, all the technology from that is going to be used in this show. I think it's just as an actor, it must be such a breath of fresh air to actually be transported into this world and feel how real it is compared to literally acting in an entirely fake room where you have to just come up with everything in your head and like work off of that. That's got to be incredibly challenging. So for them to have this lifelike, technology around them, I'm so excited to see like what they come up with and to see him in his role, but not in the prequels. To see
yeah.
him and Hayden Christensen as well, to see how they do with this in this upgraded Star Wars world.
It's interesting you mentioned how he was one of the few actors who was able to actually deliver the lines and not sound like a I don't know what, but he actually mentions something to that effect in the interview
Mm.
about how not only was it frustrating that he was surrounded by green everywhere, but that, as he put it, the dialogue wasn't Shakespeare, which I think probably disturbed a lot of the prequel fans who die by those movies. The prequel memers were probably like, "Oh no, what do you mean it's not Shakespeare? Of course it is."
But I mean, I love the prequels, but the lines weren't Shakespeare. It's
Yeah, no, of
a
course.
lot of it was very wooden, but it's still, I love it for what it is. But I would still like to see it, with him act with better written dialogue and all of the actors in the show, just to have like such a better focus on dialogue
You're
and
talking about Hayden,
characterization and all
aren't
that.
you? You're talking
Hayden
about
especially,
Hayden.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like you're so beautiful. We're not gonna none of that. We need more better written stuff, maybe
That was
naturalistic.
not even the worst line by far.
It makes me wonder too, though. James Earl Jones, we have to see, like, hear him. I guess, like, well, that's a whole
You know,
speculation
I
in and
didn't
of its
even
own.
think about that. I
Yeah,
mean, they used him for Rogue One, and
and Rebels.
I was really happy they used him, but at the same time, you can hear his age even
Yeah,
through the voice modifier. You know, it sounds more high pitched.
yeah, it sounds weaker for
It
sure.
sounds weaker. Yeah,
But it's funny because if you listen to him in Rebels, I felt that they did a better job at mixing
I agree.
his voice
Yep,
in Rebels than they did in Rogue One,
completely agree. Completely
because
agree.
it had a more of a booming presence in Rebels, even though you could tell he was speaking slower.
It sounded a little more robotic in that,
Hmm.
which I mean, I didn't have a problem with, but they found a way to mask his age in that. I felt a lot better than Rogue One did, which I mean, it it makes sense only in the fact that they're used to using all of voiceovers because that whole show was voiceovers. So they just mixed it better.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of the other Anakin, so we get Hayden, maybe James Earl Jones back, but we also heard uh, from the source itself that Matt Lanter will be back as Anakin. He said, basically, he
Yeah.
said Anakin, his version of Anakin is not over yet. That there's more for him to do. I really hope he's not talking about some fucking video game or like
I
some
don't think he is.
some
He made it
app.
seem like it's another show. He wouldn't reveal what show or
Right.
what piece of media it is, but it's really interesting to think like
Who,
what
who
could
would you
he
think? What would you
possibly.
think it is?
Yeah, I really have no idea.
My money is on Bad Batch.
Bad Batch in a pre or what is it, a flashback, I mean?
Maybe it could be a flashback, or well, Ahsoka. I think Ahsoka's probably going to be in the Bad Batch. I mean, we know
Oh,
Rex
I
is,
definitely think so, yeah.
and we also know from Rebels that Ahsoka had a holocron recording of Anakin, like, practicing saber techniques. So
Right.
there's ways around it. Or
Yeah.
also we could actually, maybe the Bad Batch encounters Vader early on, and I don't know.
I definitely think regardless, Vader is going to be in Bad Batch. Because we know the
Well,
Emperor is.
right. Well, yeah, but it's like Ian McDermott. They reused lines from the movie, so I don't think he's gonna be featured as like a main character.
Probably not as a main character, but I don't think it's only going to be lines from the movie. They're probably going to use well, Ian
Ian McDermott.
Abercrombie's dead, but
Ian McDermott.
I don't think they're going to use Ian McDermott, which I
Well,
mean I wish
they
they
used
would
him in the trailer though.
because that was recorded lines from episode 3. But I think
Right.
they're going to use probably Sam Witwer.
Maybe. But Ian McDermott was in Star Wars Rebels,
That's
so
true. I
so
mean,
he's.
I
Yeah.
would love to have him back. He's obviously the best Palpatine because he
I
is
just think it would be
Palpatine.
weird to have Ian McDermott do the lines from the movie in the show,
If
and then
Yeah,
later
but
on,
I think it all has to do with his availability and if he's willing to do it. You know,
yeah, we're all sitting around during COVID. He has nothing to do.
get your old ass in the booth.
Yeah, exactly. Just like I hear like every actor is just making like makeshift booths
Yeah.
at their homes. So
Hmm.
they do that.
Yep.
So speaking of Bad Batch, we've also heard through D. Bradley Baker, who's the voice actor who does the clones, as in every single one of them, and not
Hmm.
just the men. No, I'm kidding. But we know that this little kid, Omega, which is the name of the kid that we've seen in the trailers and everything, is a girl. We now know that, and there's gonna be like a sort of father daughter relationship between her and some of the squad mates.
Now, question:
Hmm.
is she a clone of Django?
I don't think so. Well,
It's tough to decipher right now that it hasn't been confirmed or not. Um, I decided to take a close look at like comparatives. You look at like Boba and some of the other like young clone uh troops, and she does look a lot like them.
like Boba, like
She could
young
also
Bobas,
be
you
a
mean?
Palpatine clone. She could be
That'd be
a
sick.
Snoke
That'd
clone,
be
or
sick.
like, you know,
I think it's probably too early in the timeline for it to be like a Snoke thing. Uh, but I do think it's probably something to do with cloning for sure. I mean, she's in Camino. Uh, we there's a suggestion by D. Bradley Baker in the interview that the girl has special abilities. So yeah, it was hard to get that one out. So and there's also the suggestion that it's similar to like the relationship between Din Djarin and Grogu.
right?
Um, so it's I don't know. It's interesting to see how that develops, and that Filoni is kind of reusing that old beat of mentor apprentice sort of vibe between his characters, which is very important in every single one of the Dave Filoni story, every Star Wars story
I mean, I
really.
wouldn't say it's needed, but I think it works well as a format. You know, you have this either group or person who, you know, they get thrust into this role as protector, and it adds
Hmm.
a lot to the drama
Hmm.
and makes you actually care for the characters. Because like from what we know of the Bad Batch, like that arc in Clone Wars, like I didn't really give two shits about it. It was just like a bunch of shots of them running around shooting droids, and it was boring to me. But to actually have them after Order 66 and to see like how that affects them, who they run into, and now with this new clone girl, like, you know, that adds a lot to the drama, and it's going to be, I think, beneficial to the story.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we also have heard another leak. I don't know if we want to. If you don't want to know this, then skip ahead a little bit. But there's been a lot of speculation through the trailers that one of the members of the batch is a defector, because we know Tarkin says in the trailer that they should be hunted down, the Bad Batch, because they betrayed the Empire.
Hmm.
And when we see a lot of the shots of the Bad Batch running around, there one of them is missing, which is Crosshair.
Yep.
So, which is kind of like the ship on the shoulder type
Yeah, but
clone.
at the same
We don't
time, like
usually work with dregs. It's a great
at,
line.
at the same time though, like um fuck, who's the leader of it?
Hunter.
Hunter. There's a lot of the shots Hunter is missing too though.
No, but this is like an actual leak. Like the box, the back of the box of one of the toys. They explain it that Crosshair,
Really?
yeah, Crosshair doesn't stick around the group. He's like, no,
Very
I'm with the
interesting.
Empire.
So he's going to be hunting them.
I don't know. Maybe.
Probably. I mean, they're going to keep him around in the show.
Yeah, true. So yeah, he's definitely gonna be an adversary. He's probably gonna be under Tarkin, and you know who Tarkin speaks to a lot, Lord Vader himself. So there's a lot of potential there.
Yep.
But we get the kid to replace Crosshair, I guess, as a sort of surrogate, like new member of
I
the
wouldn't
group.
want some not nosed kid in place of a dedicated marksman.
Well, nobody cares what you think.
What is the kid going to do? Throw crayons at him?
What is like? What do you mean? Like, there's always like Anakin was a little fucking kid in Phantom Menace, and
Don't even
that
start
was
with that shit.
universally loved.
Like,
Ahsoka was a little kid at the
kidding.
beginning of
That's a good
Clone
trick.
Wars.
Let's try that.
Yeah, so I'm sure this new kid is gonna be handy. Yeah.
Anakin just taking out an entire Federation ship, just like nothing.
Well, he is the chosen one.
Woohoo! And all
This
these
is pod
fucking
racing.
guys are just blowing up and dying. All the Nemoidians. It's, ah!
Right. Well, so these kids in Star Wars, like Anakin, Ahsoka, and Ezra, Ahsoka maybe less so, but they're always like the fact that they're around is always about them being like a special, kid. And
Yes.
D. Bradley Baker talking about this kid having special abilities. That's what really is going to make the kid, fit into the group and earn her stripes.
You know
But
what kid
what are
isn't
those special
special?
abilities? Are those Force abilities? Because if they are, then that could also connect with Grogu and why, like maybe Palpatine is making like genetically inventing Force sensitive kids. So maybe that's where that stuff is at. Trying
You know
to
what kid isn't special?
what?
Broom boy.
Well, he could levitate a broom with
That,
with his
that's all.
mind.
That's all he could do, and we're
As
never
far as
gonna
we
see him
know,
again.
as
We are
far as we
never
know,
going to
that's the
see him
only thing.
again. He is the most irrelevant character.
Uh, you see, the biggest problem in this universe is nobody helps each other, and
Don't
everybody showed
quote
up at
that
the
movie.
end. What do you mean? That's
For those
Phantom
who don't know,
Menace.
we're talking about The Last Jedi, which
That was
I
Phantom. That
absolutely
was a Phantom
despise.
Menace quote, by the way.
Yes, but I mean about Broom Boy we're talking about.
You brought him up.
I know. I just wanted to bust your balls about The Last Jedi.
It's great shit.
Wait,
So
speaking of,
yeah,
we need to do our sequel trilogy episodes.
no, and we will, and we absolutely will. But I also think it's very intriguing to see how this new stuff, like the comic I'm about to talk about and the Bad Batch, how it all fills in the tiles between the movies,
Hmm.
especially in relation to Episode 9. So this new comic that came out of this Vader comic. So in the Vader comics right now, he's discovering Exegol, which is of course the hidden world of the Sith, as legend describes it. And Vader is sort of figuring out Palpatine's plan, it seems, which kind of has a bunch of interesting implications about how much Vader actually knew about Palpatine trying to cheat death, like in a real, like in an actual real sense. This is all
Yeah.
post Empire Strikes Back. This comic takes
Yep.
place between Empire and Jedi,
Hmm.
which is kind of a narrow time period. But so he figures out where Exegol is. He goes there, and the the most intriguing thing about this comic, and the thing that a lot of fans have been talking about, is that we see a severed hand in the tank. Now, so we yeah, so we know that Luke's hand was of course cut off in Empire Strikes Back. This brings in a bunch of theories about is Luke's hand being used as like a genetic template or whatever to create Snoke's, and is Snoke a sort of weird fucking strand cast a version of Luke, like the anti Luke, or were they trying to create the anti Luke, considering that Luke is the last Jedi?
Do you want to hear what I think it is?
But yeah, give me 2 seconds though, because there's another thing about this, that in the Force Awakens, in the original script, the movie was supposed to open with Luke's hand floating in space, grabbing the Skywalker lightsaber. This was the original script that Lawrence Kasdan wrote with J.J. Abrams.
Wait,
This
wait, wait,
got
wait, wait,
leaked.
wait, wait, wait. Time out, time out.
Yes,
You're saying the lightsaber was still in Luke's hand after it got severed?
yes,
Wasn't it shown to be thrown out of his hand though?
no. The hand went with the along with the lightsaber.
Huh.
Like they were still grasping it. But so the original opening for Episode 7 for The Force Awakens was Luke's hand floating in space with a lightsaber, and it landed on a planet. I think it was Jakku, and the whole concept of the Force flashback in The Force Awakens was to show the journey the lightsaber went through. That's why we see the Knights of Ren like killing a villager, is because they were looking for the lightsaber. That's where that whole line of that lightsaber belongs to
Still
me.
makes no sense though. So the hand gets severed on Bespin.
Yeah,
It goes down that shaft, and how does it end up in space?
no fucking clue. However,
Stupid.
the whole point is they were gonna do something with Luke's hand in the sequel trilogy originally before they, I guess, cut off that planet. A different story for another time is what I think Mascanata says. And it makes me think: were they thinking of Snoke's origins back then, and they just streamlined the story and have it make have it something to do with Luke's hand?
Let me
That's the
tell
part
you,
that
I
kind of
refuse to give them
intrigues
that
me.
credit. I highly, highly doubt that they had that in mind, especially considering all this shit with Palpatine, yada yada, was not planned at all, as confirmed by Daisy Ridley. They had no plan. It was just a mismatch of different directors with different visions, and Kathleen Kennedy
Okay, that's
being
a
the
whole
worst
different
executive.
issue. I'm talking it in relation with this comic book, though. Like, is this where Snoke's
Yeah, that's entirely
template comes
possible.
from? And what do you think of that idea of Snoke being like an offspring, as it were, not an offspring, but like the
But
next
here's my
line.
only question:
Hmm.
is isn't Snoke technically a Palpatine clone?
Well,
He's
that
just like a
not really.
failed abomination type.
That's not what they said. They said he created Snoke. Like he fucked with genetics to create a vessel for him
Yes,
to
but I
rule the galaxy.
assumed it was with his own genetics.
Right. I don't think it is though. That's why he has like a clone of himself. So the idea is maybe Palpatine is looking at other people, like a Skywalker, for example, who technically they originated from the Force, and maybe Grogu. I don't know
Honestly,
what Grogu's deal is,
regardless, man, I would be fine with just more backstory. I want more
right?
explanation on Snoke's origins
That's what we're
and
getting. Yeah.
Palpatine, the cloning and all that shit. I personally, I think it's Ponda Baba's arm. He doesn't
Is it?
like you.
Well, is it
I
Ponda
don't like you
Baba's?
either.
Is it Ponda Baba's arm pre special edition or post special edition? Because they're two very different arms. One of them is
That is very
hairy like a
true.
wolf, and the other one is a human arm.
I would say it's the hairy one.
Just shaved. Somebody's
Uh,
like doing manicure to the hand every once in a while. They take it out of the vat. One of those Sith cultists, like the Oompa Loompas people, he's chanting in the background like exactly.
with Ponda Baba.
For Panda Baba. That's like the eggs in Temple of Doom. They all chant to
Yeah.
them. Panda Baba's arm. This place could be a little rough. Uh, but yeah, so it's very interesting. I think there's something at play here, and I think they're trying to connect all this stuff with the sequel trilogy with the added material, like the TVs, the
Yeah.
comics, everything.
Yeah, check out the
Uh,
comic, guys, and if not, you could always just look it up on YouTube, or there's plenty of people showing the visuals to it that you could check out, and you definitely should.
yeah, and there's also great. They actually do voiceovers of the comics, which is
Yes,
really good. And I underestimated them because once I thought like this could never be like a good substitute, but then you watch it and they put in a good production for sure.
you underestimate my power.
Yeah, I did. Don't try it. So Tyler, tell us something. You have something to tell us, right?
I do have
Regarding
news.
yes.
So, my dream for the
Hmm.
longest time has been to make a cosplay, and a specific cosplay for my favorite character being Boba Fett.
Hmm.
So, I finally decided I have an influx of cash right now. This is the perfect time as we're winding down from COVID, and things are starting to open back up. We're going to get Star Wars Celebration next year, and Comic Cons are coming around, and all this stuff. I was like, you know what? Especially with the Mandalorian season 2, now that Boba's back and he has a new set of armor, not many
And
people
a
have cosplayed as the
brand new
new.
TV show too.
Yeah, with Book of Boba Fett coming out. Um, I was like, I want to do Boba, but I want to do his new repainted armor, his new getup.
You want to do
So
Boba?
I've been, I am not a handy person to where like I have all this knowledge of how to make the costume myself, and there are way too talented people who do this for a living. So I've been hunting down pieces on Etsy and all these different websites, using the dented helmet as reference, to find all these different pieces. And holy shit, not only is it expensive, but time consuming and just taking up a lot of my time to, put this thing together. I have a lot of pieces in the mail on the way and getting created right now. And later on, I will definitely be showing you guys the completed costume. But right now, it is just me on the hunt, just constantly putting this thing together and buying piece by piece from different creators. So just be on the lookout for that. I'm excited.
Which so are we talking about Mandalorian Boba? Like the accuracy? Is it more the
Yes,
features or?
so it's not directly post Sarlacc. It is after he repainted his armor, and you see him at the very end of Mando season 2 when he
Mm.
kills Bib Fortuna.
Yeah, oh yeah. Okay,
Yep.
interesting. So you're gonna put in a little weight too?
Honestly, all
Sorry.
right.
Uh,
If you actually look at Boba himself and Tamara Morrison, it
he's a
really
fucking
wasn't that he was like chubby or like had
no.
a
I'm
dad
just
bod.
gonna say, Tamora Morrison is a fucking badass, and I should
Oh,
be
he's
put to shame because of what I
absolutely
said.
love that guy. But even in his old age, like no, he's not even
That old.
unfit. Like I think it was just his posture and the camera angles that they showed. Because if you're standing out a certain way, the armor is gonna like pop out a bit. So
Hmm.
it just looked like he had a stomach. Plus, he's wearing like those thick garb robes.
Yeah.
It just made him look fatter than he actually is. So, you know, I don't really think that was intended for them, but it just became this whole, you know, dad bod Boba thing. You know what? I'm for it. I don't care.
I want my armor.
I want my armor.
That's great, dude. See,
Yep.
Boba, you know how I feel about Boba. I didn't feel a lot about him one way or the
Now
other,
do you?
but now I think he's cooler.
He's justified, right?
Sort of. I mean, we still have a lot to see because he's only been in 2 episodes of Mando.
Very true.
But
I mean, I
uh,
cannot wait for Book of Boba to see what they come up with. But
yeah, and
so
that's coming
Carlos,
out this year.
yeah.
Yes.
My question is for
Mhm.
you.
Okay.
If we're going to Star Wars Celebration together.
Yes.
What are you going to cosplay as?
Well, you've seen me cosplay before, right?
I
Well, we
have
did
seen you
Halloween.
as the Emperor for Halloween, which
Yes.
was excellent. I must say it was. I mean, I was Freddie Mercury at the time, but
Yes.
you know what? We went to the Star Wars bar in L.A. and I mean that was just such an amazing time. But
You will
yeah,
never
I mean, what are
find
you going to do
Richard
for
Hyde.
Star Wars Celebration?
Shit, I don't know. You put me on the spot
You
now.
got to put something together, man.
I gotta think about it. But that's next year though. So gotta start
It would be
hunting shit
hilarious
through
if you
Etsy.
rolled around with me as Fennec Shand.
Or just Bib Fortuna, fat Bib Fortuna.
Yeah, yeah, beat Bib Fortuna, bro.
Tawanawanga.
Boba.
Yeah. Fennec Shan is a good one. I wouldn't give a shit. I would do
Just a male Fennec Shand
it. Yeah, exactly. You ever seen like those dudes that dress as Slave
that
Leia?
dress
Like
as
those.
Slave Leia. Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I think that's a vibe. I like
Yep.
that.
Hell yeah.
So maybe that. I don't know. We'll workshop it. We'll come up with
Yes.
something good.
There we go.
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for listening in. We are gonna do an episode on the Bad Batch coming up now on May 4th. We're probably gonna be releasing in Revenge of the Fifth. That's May 5th for all you normies. And so, thank you so much for listening. And of course, may the force be with you.
Always.
Dank Farrik.